Hello, everyone. Welcome to Peacock Market Live. I am James Barry, and I am here again with the amazing David Whitlock.
Hey, thank you for that
Welcome.
introduction. How
Yeah,
are you?
I'm doing well. How about
Yeah,
yourself?
it's good to see you. It's been a hot minute.
It has been, but a lot's happened
Yeah, I
in that
missed you at
time.
Amelia Island this year.
Missed Amelia Island.
Yeah, you missed a
It's
good time.
2024 now,
Yep.
so you could fill us in on that. How was all the festivities and the events and the auctions?
I thought it was excellent.
Yeah,
You know, really, really good time. Lots of great cars, great people. I mean, the rain played a part in it,
sure.
but I kind of liked having the rain. Sunday, Concourse Sunday, the field's usually packed. Rain came through, cleared a lot of people out.
Wow.
So you could actually, in the mid-afternoon, walk around the cars and see everything, talk to people, and
Yeah.
it wasn't just, completely sardined in.
I'm with you, and I could empathize with that. We were down. We went to this event in Naples just to get out of the winter here, and it was called Cars on Fifth.
I've heard of that. Want to
And
go?
it was, let me tell you something, tremendous.
Yeah.
It was huge. But we actually took a booth there because we have a lot of clients in that area, and we said, it'll be fun to go down there and do something. And there was a Koenigsegg 3 booths down from us. And Brad, who's on the team here, loves the Koenigsegg, and he was dying to see the car. There were so many people. The crowd was so dense. He could not see. He saw like pieces of the car. He saw a wheel, then he saw a mirror,
Yep.
but he could not just see the whole car. And taking a picture was completely out of the question.
Oh, yeah, way
Completely out of the
way
question.
too crowded. But,
Yeah.
yeah, for us at Amelia, that rain came through. People left and didn't come back, so it was kind of nice.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that Cars on the Fifth, don't they have an auction with that as well? The
They
Saratoga.
did. It
people
was
do
not
that.
that day, so they did something on the Friday.
Okay.
And then the Cars on Fifth was on Saturday. So it was a cool little auction. We went to it. It was a lot of like, it wouldn't be stuff you travel for, but like some like nice like Florida cars.
Okay.
You know what I mean, some like some 450 SLs, some like Bentley
Yep.
GTCs.
Lots of tan convertibles.
Yeah, exactly. So it was in a place though that had some of these cool car condos,
Oh,
and some of
neat.
these guys set them up really nice. We have a client down there, and I'll shout him out, Jim. I won't say his last name, but he has a really cool product that we're going to talk about soon.
Okay.
Because they had a big problem down there in the hurricanes. They lost some cars. And he's got a product where you could put the car basically in a bag, and
Hurricane
the flood
proof.
comes and the car's just there.
There you
Pretty
go.
cool. So
Nice.
we're gonna have him on and talk to him about it. But it's a really cool thing that I think would save a lot of special vehicles.
Yeah, right?
So yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Floating McLaren P1s.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And he just bought that car. I know the whole story with that.
So auctions were good.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting cars sold. One in particular that didn't sell, though, was a 993 Turbo Cabriolet.
I watched that one.
Yep.
I watched
That was a big one. I was looking forward to seeing that.
How do you value that car, right?
Yep. That's the only one has sold, that I can remember. And it was years ago. And then we had one, I guess, last year that failed to sell, and then this one as well. I think they're asking somewhere in the 600 range for the car right
It's
now.
a priceless car, and that's why
Yep.
I don't bet. Because I would have bet that there's no such thing. Never heard of that. All my
Right.
years in doing this, that car got under my radar. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I know they've done some obscure things, and I wouldn't put it past the special wishes department to do it, but I've never heard of that car.
Yep.
So that's really cool. And
Well, that car was on request by a German car dealer. Said, we early or mid 90s, dealer was like, I'd like a 993, Turbo Cabriolet. And we're like, well, we don't have it. Not gonna make it. So he said, all right, listen, if you can get 10 people to do this, we'll do it. So ended up selling 14.
all right.
Yep.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, this is long overdue. We mentioned this at the end of the year, wrap up, that we were going to do something about the 993s. And this isn't going to necessarily be about the market per se, because what's interesting is, right, we know the market's a little crazy. The 993s seem to be pretty immune.
Yeah.
I'm seeing everything, the same. I'm not really seeing upticks. But
Turbos.
yeah, the 993s the turbos I think have softened a little bit, but the right ones are still up there.
Yeah.
But I think like the mid-range, like the driver grade cars are maybe softened a little bit. But we just saw a couple of C2Ss, C4Ss sell for good money. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
The cabs are kind of consistent. So it's pretty interesting. So we could dive in, but I want to go through a little bit of background here on what we're talking about. So the 993 is, for those that don't know, the last of the air-cooled 911s. Right, it's the final evolution of the air-cooled car.
Yep.
And, why do you think they're so expensive?
Well, number one, last of the air-cooled cars. And it's also such a different looking air-cooled 911 than the 964 or the Carrera 3.2s and the other cars that came before. It's very, very special 911. You know, the design is a lot smoother, and that just kind of has a lot to do with regulations at the time.
Yeah.
You know, the designer, Tony Hatter, he's a guy that just loved to sit down and talk, you know, for hours about, you know, his thought process when designing this car, because so much, you know, went into it.
You ever get to meet him?
No, I haven't.
I got the pleasure of meeting him at the millionth 911 unveiling in Manhattan.
Very cool.
And totally unexpected. I mean, it was really, really cool.
Oh, yeah, I would have talked his ear off.
I'm sure.
I would have talked his ear off.
We did, but we held back a little bit. We were sensitive to that.
Yep.
But yeah, no, and I agree with you. And I also think it's because the car is, if you want to drive, it is the most usable of the, you know, because you go into a primitive, like, don't get me wrong, I love the earlier cars. They're a lot more visceral.
Yep.
But, you know, there's only so much. You could be in a 993, you know, for double the amount of time on a long trip and not get fatigued than you can in, like, a 356 or an F-body or even a G-body. You know what I
When
mean?
designing the car, they wanted to take it up a notch. You know, other cars, other options from the German automakers, they were starting to be a little bit more luxurious. So the 911 had to be a little bit more luxurious. You can see that in the interior a little bit, the seats. They did a number of things to lessen the sound, which to me is like, but
Yeah, you need to, you know,
get an
you need to
exhaust,
change some
but
things.
it made it just a more pleasure to drive
Yeah.
than the 964 before it in that like distance touring kind of way.
Yeah, and I go back and forth. I love both equally. It's very hard for me to choose which one I like. I
collect
know.
them all.
I always keep talking about Brad, but Brad is a 964 guy. 964 guy. To me, it's not that just cut and dry. It's really not, because the 993 is a stunning car. But yeah, just to go into some of this stuff here, in the U.S., we titled cars 95 to 98, right? Europe had them, I believe, 93, definitely 94.
Yep.
So they had them a little longer. You mentioned Tony Hatter. It was the biggest change in the air-cooled 911. So a lot of these cars were just like a progression. According to Sam, who I'll give a shout out to, Sam is our chief editor, and he is a guru and a historian with the cars. So he got a lot of this data from me, but approximately 20% of the parts are carryover. So it's 80% a fresh car. First car with the 6-speed.
Yep.
So that's a big deal.
Again, emissions dictated that.
Yep. The Tiptronic got smoother, which, to me, I don't really go there with the Tiptronic.
Yeah,
they're cool,
You can do it to the finger. The little toggles on the steering wheel came with Tiptronic too.
Crazy.
That was a first.
Yep. And then in terms of the models go, we have the Carrera 2 in a coupe and a cab, Carrera 4 in a coupe and a cab, right? We have the Targa. There was no four-wheel drive Targa, which confuses a lot of people, because in the newer cars, they're only all-wheel drive.
Right? That's it. That's all you get.
Exactly. You have the 4S, the 2S, the Turbo S, and then the Carrera RS. And then there's a bunch of cars that were not street legal. You have the GT2 also.
Yep.
But again, that was Europe only. The RS is a Europe only.
You never get the good stuff.
Exactly. And then, like you said, we had this Turbo Cabriolet. They had a few 993 Speedsters. They never made it officially a 993 Speedster model.
They made two cars, one for Seinfeld and I guess one for executive or CEO of Porsche at the time.
And there were a few, according to record, 993 C2S Cabriolets.
Yes. So they were made for Beverly Hills Porsche. And I've heard conflicting stories on this. I've heard it came from the factory as C2S, wide body, turbo look cars.
Yep.
But I've also heard that Beverly Hills Porsche had them built. So I don't know which is true.
It's very possible.
Can't believe everything you read on the internet.
I mean, essentially, it would just be a 993 America Roadster, right? They just didn't call it. That's what it should be called, because the 964 wide body cab was called the America Roadster.
Yeah.
But for those who haven't driven those cars, and don't get me wrong, I love them, but in the 964, and especially in the G body in the 89s, those cars had a lot less horsepower, and you feel a wide body car without a bigger motor. Yeah, you feel it.
You feel the weight.
You feel it. When you get to the new cars, you don't notice the difference between a heavier car, because they're so fast. They're 400 horsepower, 450, whatever. So it's a big deal. But anyway, we'll dive in. So just to go through some of these, just to show the audience and the viewers what these cars look like. So this is a Carrera coupe, right? Mm-hmm. And this is probably the most pure, a quintessential 911. It's the basic bare bones. They had 270 horsepower, and in '96 they actually updated the engine, so the car was here a year,
right?
And it has the Vero Ram intake, and it's 282 horsepower, I believe. But what's interesting and coveted about the 95s is for people who have to deal with like New York emissions and California and stuff like that is these are OBD1 cars.
Yeah.
So people will go after these for that reason.
Just for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love like I said, the design, the look. Like you look at the profile of the car, how the headlights are a little bit more swooped back
Yes.
than the 964. And that was just because headlight technology had evolved where Porsche could do that on the nose of the car.
Yeah.
And with the front end, it's raised a little bit as well.
Yeah.
And it's probably had to do with pedestrian crash.
Yeah, because the Euro spec
ratings at
ones are a little
times.
lower, and a lot of people lower them down. The reason I picked this particular car to show folks is when the car first got introduced, the third brake light was in this basket handle on the deck lid, and that's rare because even I think it's halfway through 95, definitely in 96, they moved it up at the end of the roof to the top of the rear windshield, the rear glass.
Yeah.
So this is an earlier car.
I like the basket handle look.
It's cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it's cool, unique, different.
It's definitely cool. I like them both. I mean, if you have a Cabriolet, you're getting the basket handle, so in the coupes you have. But this was a nice car. This one, same thing. This is the later, and as you can see, it's at the top of the, it extends from the roof.
Yep. No
But
basket handle back there.
Yeah, it leaves you with a cleaner.
And of course, arena red.
Yeah.
Quintessential 993 color. I mean, kills bugs fast. 993 turbo poster.
Exactly.
Everybody's got that on the
Exactly.
walls.
And value-wise, this one and another one we recently sold, within the past 12 months. This was like a higher sale because this car had like 7,000 miles on it or something like that.
Yeah.
So you paid, $125 to $150. But you can get a nice driver-grade coupe, Carrera coupe, under $100,000, and it's a lot of car.
Yeah.
It's a lot of car.
Absolutely agreed. One other design detail. You have a picture of like a head-on shot of the entire front of the car. I always loved this about the 993s.
Let's see.
You'll notice that the mirrors are offset on the cars, where the passenger side is a little bit higher and the
I'm going to go to this other car.
driver's side is notched down a bit on the fender. It was always a really interesting detail that I noticed on our car.
That is interesting. You know what? I notice it. I never really notice it from outside the car. I notice it when I'm driving it.
Yeah.
I notice it because, it's like right there. Yeah, this is the best I have here. It's
There
kind
it
of
is.
hard to see, but you can
see the gap between the passenger side mirror in the door and the driver's side mirror in the door.
Yeah. Yeah, you could see it. It's very interesting. Targa, right? So this is when they came out with the glass roof Targa.
Yes.
Is it really a Targa? I don't know.
Giant sunroof.
These are coveted.
They are. These have gone absolutely crazy in the last 6 months. And, part of it all started with that car you guys had, that special one.
And we sold that one recently, right?
Yep. Beautiful, beautiful car. But the rest of them just followed.
Yeah.
And it's just wild. I mean, granted, a lot of them were low mileage, very nice cars compared to some of the other comps that were higher mileage. But still, you're looking well over $150 for a $150,000 for a 993
For the
Targa.
people watching, the ways you could pick up on this. So these wheels are bespoke to the Targa. If you see these wheels on another 911, they were swapped on. These were Targa-specific wheels, which I think is cool. I like when they do that because nowadays, they all have the same wheel options. You get turbo wheels on a Carrera, Targa, C4S, they all have the same wheels. But also, too, the way you could tell the difference is you see how that quarter window comes to like a real point. It's like a triangle.
I think that's a great design detail on those because basically it's a Cabriolet with this new Targa roof slapped on top.
Yeah. Yeah. So that car you were mentioning that we sold, so that was the car that David did the video with Jason Castriotti. He designed that car.
That's it.
And that car sold. It went to a really deserving person, which is actually going to Canada. It's
it was
in Canada
beautiful.
now.
You showed me that downstairs.
Yeah,
and
I'm
it
gonna
was
pull it up here.
absolutely gorgeous. There it is.
That car was basically a car that was at the point of its life where it needed some rehabilitation, and instead of just respraying it or whatever, he customized every cosmetic detail of this car.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I've been driving Porsches for a long time. People who love Porsches will always stop you, but there's also a lot of people who don't like Porsches. I've never been stopped more times driving a car. This car was a rolling work of art.
I believe it because the pictures don't do the car justice.
Right.
I mean, the pictures look beautiful, but in person, it was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you guys haven't seen the video David did with the car, he goes through the whole car with
haven't. I need to
Jason.
see that.
And this car has like the light, gold tone wheels. The twin grille in the back, is also contrasting. It matches the wheels. It's got gold Targa script.
And then the interior.
This car is stunning, and Jason's not paying me to say this. It's just a testament to how talented he is because he really, this car is the definition of a crowd pleaser. It really is. We took it to New Canaan. We took it to Newport, to the Audrain, and we were just stopped
Oh, I'm sure.
everywhere with this car. Look at this interior.
I mean, he's a car designer, right?
He is, yeah.
Maserati.
Yeah.
Some.
Yeah, he did the Gran Turismo.
Okay.
He did the 599. That's a
Okay.
good car. He did that new SSC Tutara that broke a speed record.
Gotcha.
The-
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yeah. I believe it. I believe it. I know some people that drove the car. I know someone that has one, and it's
think you could do
quite
it.
a machine. But anyway, this was a passion project. We were lucky to get it. We had it for about 2 years, and it was an amazing car to own. Kind of sorry to see it go.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I would have done to this car if I kept it, I would have changed the steering wheel out to the 9961 because I'm not a fan of updating parts. I like making things period correct, but I've seen enough of these where that 3-spoke 996 steering wheel is a welcome upgrade on these
Looks
cars.
much better than that 4-spoke.
Yeah. The 4-spoke's nostalgic. You know what I mean? But anyway, so, and then, moving into the Cabriolets, same thing. These cars, you could have a Cabriolet for 40, 50 grand. You could pay up to 100. This was a really nice one. This one I'm showing here, this was a
PTS.
PTS.
Yep.
It was pearl white. The guy who got this car got a special car. The interior was specced out, carbon fiber and a lot of goodies. You could kind of see, look at that. Steering wheel, leather wrapped, carbon on the doors.
Oh, wow.
Supple leather. This was a nice car. There's a lot of configurations you could have on these cars.
Look at that carbon.
Yeah. And for the record, I don't think the value changed that much, so we could show this. This sold for $84,000 in exactly a year ago, 2 days ago.
Okay.
Right? So, but it's pretty much right there. This is a good investment.
Yeah, and that's a lot of car for that, too.
Yeah.
Especially the options. I mean, Porsche's options are what sell the car. Colors and options. And that's
And to be clear, if this
that's
is
going
a
to be a good
coupe,
buy in a few years.
with this configuration, this car would have definitely cracked 100 grand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Is another nice cab.
It was a Targa, it'd be 200.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy.
Who would have thought Targas
because,
would be like this?
This guy had his tonneau cover installed, which, these cars, it's a lot of little extra labor. But if
Yep.
you notice, it comes with that tonneau cover you could snap in. And if you don't
Yes.
intend on putting the top up and down 3-4 times when you're out with it, you could put that on, especially if you're going to a show or Cars and Coffee. It looks cool.
Right.
But this one sits nice with the wheels. He upgraded he made the centers dark graphite. That
So,
was
yeah,
a factory.
painted wheels.
Yeah. Yeah. And this also has another rare interior with the Boxster red.
Boxster red.
Because you got to remember back, everyone now is picking all the wacky choices, right? But, most of these cars had black or gray interiors. When you see them with blue, when you see them with, something like this, I mean, look at that.
Right.
And it's nice. It has
Those
the
boxes
contrasting-
weren't ticked back then. PTS wasn't ticked back then. You just didn't see it as much. Now, it's PTS everything, crazy interior colors. What can I get my seat centers in?
Yeah.
So
Well, nobody knew you could do that back then.
Yes.
You had to be a real connoisseur.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I learned about it young. I had a friend whose dad did an 88 or an 87 turbo special wishes car. And so I learned about it when I was in elementary school.
Wow.
And I was like, what is this? He goes, yeah, special wishes. They'll do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want.
And it was funny because he had all of his cars were black, but that was the one car he had because he's one of those, some collectors are like that. Every car should be the same color. That was the one car he had that wasn't black. So it was interesting. And it was big bragging rights. But then he traded it in for a black 94 Speedster.
It's like, yeah, it wasn't black. I gotta go back.
Yeah, exactly.
Our cars are all blue.
Exactly.
Family.
Exactly. So Carrera Coupe, Carrera 4 Coupe, Carrera Cab, Carrera 4 Cab, right? Now we move into the S's. So
Yes.
C2S. So the C2S's are the rarer. And this is what confuses people, right? Because everyone thinks that, I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people think that Porsche is like Mercedes. The higher the number, the more expensive or the better it is. Porsche is a tool for a job.
Right.
So, the 4S was exactly a turbo without the turbo. The 2S is just a turbo body. So the 4S has the brakes, it has the suspension, and that's basically it. And it's just missing the turbo, but it has the wide body, the front bumper, the rocker panels, which the 2S has, and then the 2S has that infamous split grille in the back, which,
Yep.
a lot of people change on their cars because it's gorgeous.
Yep, it looks really good.
Yeah.
And they made less of them.
Yeah.
So
They made less, well, mainly too because it was
people
less
ordered
years.
less.
Yeah, 96 you could get a 4S in the United States.
Yeah, it's
The
almost-
2S came out in 97, so there's a whole extra year of 4S's here. Then and then in Europe, I don't know what they did. So
almost 7,000 Carrera 4S's, a little over 4,000
Yep.
Carrera S's.
yep. And then here you go. You can kind of get a shot of the twin grill.
Yeah, there's that twin grill.
Yep. Gorgeous. And these cars, we sold an 11,000 mile one for 230 grand about a year or two ago. It was one of the highest sales. One did you sell and bring a trailer, same mileage, not the same car. I checked it, and it sold for the exact same price. So that's how high these things can get if they're right.
Yep.
But you're a normal, like a car of this caliber, this one sold for 150, 21,000 miles, and I'd say your market's between 140 and 170, so that's like dead on.
That's right in the middle.
Yeah, and a driver grade one would maybe be 120, but you're not getting these cars under 100 unless they're like restoration projects.
Yep. Projects are just super high mileage, paint work, no service history.
Yeah.
Everything you don't want. That's why it's under $100,000.
Exactly. And you know what? It's funny. I thought of this last night. This car, I would say, is the biggest competitor to a new 911 because they're priced the same. If you got $150,000 in your pocket, you could shop for this, and you could shop for a new Carrera S.
What I see, 'cause, dealing with new Porsches and whatnot quite often, you get the person who can afford that $150,000 brand new Porsche. They buy the brand new Porsche, then they start going to Porsche Club events. They start talking to friends, Cars and Coffee. They're like, okay, I gotta check that air cooled box now, and they go into a 993 or something else. But they hit those older air cooled cars. They get introduced to the brand through the new car, and then they want to explore and experience some more of the history.
Yeah,
and I see the collections grow
so dead
that way.
Accurate. We have a local client, Dr. Josh here. He buys a lot of cars on the site, and he was a client of the dealership when we had the dealership. And I always tell people this story. We sold an '84 Targa to him, and the trade-in was a 2015 one-year-old Turbo S.
Yep.
I mean,
all
so
the time.
if you never drove an air-cooled car and you're not a Porsche guy, you would look at that and be like, what the heck? Did the guy go broke or something? He traded in a car, put 100 grand in his pocket, and he was the happiest guy in the world.
They want to experience the evolution of the 911.
Yeah, and I say this to him all the time. That was one of my favorite, that particular one he bought. That car was so dialed in. I was so mad at him. He sold it, and he got a 356. And he had it for like maybe 2 years, and then he bought a hot-rodded 911. So it's not like he didn't go away from air-cooled, but I was so mad when he got rid of that car. But I sold it to a guy in Georgia, and I know where it is. It's a special car.
Keep an eye on that one.
Yeah, it was a special
Add that
one.
to your list of VINs to track.
Yeah, exactly. It was perfect. It had the Momo wheel, a couple little upgrades, a little exhaust. It was nice. But anyway, this was the car I'm putting on the screen here. This is just a yellow C4S. Speed yellow was a big deal, right? Because it was not a no-cost option before 2000, I think. So if you had speed yellow on this car, it was like $4,000.
You paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, these cars were like 80 grand. A new turbo was 96,000.
And most of your cars, too, were in muted colors, like dark blues, silvers, grays, blacks. The red was, living on the edge when they come out in speed yellow. And then when you see some of these that are spec'd like this one, I absolutely love this car.
Well, this is pastel, so
this is pastel, but the interior.
I hated this color when it was new, and now it's the one I'd have.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
That pastel yellow was a boxer red interior?
No, so this car, this was another really special car. This one sold for 175 because of the spec. It didn't have super low mileage, but this is a chestnut brown.
Chestnut brown.
And I'm going to show you something really cool. The headliner in this car, well, first let's look at the twin grille. Got to always look at the twin grille. That's gorgeous. But the headliner in this car, because they all came black, matched the sports seats too, by the way.
Ooh.
Matched the interior. This car, once it's all detailed, is a showstopper.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it's in bad condition. It's just
whose signature is that?
You could take this car to another level. But let me get to this headliner. I'm flipping through too many pictures. Here.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. So that was somebody special requested that. Somebody got in the car, knew that the headliner would come black, and said, "No, I want it that way."
My dad's C4S interior, his headliners did Metro Blue as well.
Really?
Yep.
In which car?
993 C4S.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. But yeah, this is stunning. This is
absolutely
a stunning car.
I always used to associate pastel yellow with like Boxsters, but it was offered before that.
It was the yellow you got if you couldn't afford to spend $4,000 on speed yellow or didn't want to spend. That's what it was. And now it became so beautiful.
It looks so good.
But that turbo front bumper is just, it sits so nice. Like, just to show you a comparison, right? See the difference?
Yep.
It's just very different front bumper on the cars. And that was, by the way, on the Targa, because they all came with the Carrera bumpers. That brown Targa we sold, that had the turbo front bumper, and it had like the aero rockers, and it had the Euro ride heights. That's why that car looked, it actually, when you lower these cars, the narrow body, because they do have flares no matter what,
Yeah.
it makes it, you have to look twice to
The
see if it's a
narrow's
wide
not
body.
so narrow, but then the wide is wide.
Yeah, they're not narrow.
Beautiful.
You're right. I just put this up for edification. This is a real RSR. So this is the last air-cooled factory race car they built. This was out of the Seinfeld collection. This is a 7-figure car all day long. They made 38 of these, I think.
When did you sell this one?
That was sold this year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember that one.
Special car.
Yeah.
Very special car. Because now you're getting into all of the, before we get to the Euro stuff, the turbos. That's the last one to talk about, right? So the turbos are, that's what you had in the U.S. market. Carreras, coupe cab, Targa, the S's, and then the turbos. And then all the RS stuff we never got.
No.
So
Turbo was it. That was the top of the line for us.
Yeah.
And they're still doing extremely well. I mean, they might have softened a few months ago, but recently
a little bit,
seeing a little bit of an uptick.
Yeah.
I mean, you have drivers with 40, 50,000 miles, $200,000 cars.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And what's
awesome
cool
car,
about the
though.
993 Turbo is the tail is all painted, because on the older
Yeah.
cars, they had a lot of rubber on them
Yep.
and stuff like that. This car, was very clean. It stood the test of time really well. I mean, this car does not look old. I can't believe how old these cars are already. I'm shocked.
Yeah.
But, you show this to somebody who just not a Porsche expert, but they just, just like a person who's driven Mercedes or BMW, you said this car is 30 years old. They'd be like, what?
Yeah, no way.
It's impossible. But they're
It's a
gorgeous.
timeless design.
Yeah. There's a white one. I mean, these cars you could look at all day. And then the S variant, right? Very rare.
300 and some odd built.
No.
No.
182.
182. Oof.
182 for the world. That's why they're worth what they're worth. Here's an S. This
No,
one.
993 Turbo S's. There are more than
Yeah,
that. built.
so subtle differences, right? You have the chin spoiler in the front. You have the
intakes.
by the fog lights that cool the front brakes. Hard to see in this picture, but
The
the wheels are
959
glossy.
intakes,
They're
yeah.
like a hyper silver. The calipers came yellow, and then the bigger differences are you have these massive intakes in the quarter
Right.
panels that are done by the factory, and the wing is an aero wing. So you see how you could stick your arm in between there, kind of, if you have a small arm.
Yep.
The regular turbo wing, you couldn't do that. X50 package gave you, roughly 25 more horsepower, just like it kind of does today.
What was that?
You
Bigger
know?
nerbos, better cooling, ECU tune type of thing.
Yep. And then interior-wise, I believe these cars all came with the boxes checked. I've never seen one without carbon fiber trim. This particular one had the can red interior, but carbon fiber everywhere. I noticed Turbo S stamped.
Turbo S, yeah.
Leather wrapped everything. They basically took everything they had because they knew they were going to stop making the air-cooled cars, and they just dumped all the stuff, I guess, that they couldn't sell.
I mean, typical Porsche, end of the line, Porsche exclusive manufacturer.
All the silver gauges, all the carbon, all the hardback seats, it all went in there.
All went in. It's like the 964 Turbo S's. They had these chassis left over. What do you do with it? Throw everything in it and sell them.
Well, listen, I was told, I didn't fact check this, I don't write hate mail, but I was told that the C2S was not a planned thing. They had more turbo bodies than turbo engines. So they slapped together this special edition. It was a no-cost option. I can't think of any time Porsche ever did that. It was a no-cost option. I have one. Okay, the window sticker was $69,000. That's what the starting price. That's what a Carrera was. No charge option on the 2S.
Go with the body.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was, and then look, they took off. So it's always funny, and it's the same thing like when you go to the 997s too, right? They you could tell what they're doing. They're trying to, they're being a company. They have to get rid of the stuff they have before they transition to the new model. So you got the GTS, the GT3 RS 4.0. You know what I mean?
But what's interesting, though,
The
is
Speedsters.
for the 993, by that time, Porsche had gone to on-demand parts for manufacturing. So it's not like they really had a ton of leftover parts at that time. Because that was one of the big problems. So, like, I don't know. I think when I think 993, a lot of people, you'll sometimes see, like, oh, it's like a stopgap between, the success of the Boxster 996 variant that really saved Porsche. But I think the 993 played such an integral part in that. Because when you think, like, early 90s, Porsche was in a huge amount of financial trouble.
Yes.
I mean, they went from selling 50,000 units a year, like in the 80s, to early 90s, like 12,000 units. Like nothing. They were hemorrhaging cash, $300 million, $150 million a year, just down the toilet. And what's his name? Wendelin Wiedeking came in as CEO. And he's an interesting guy because he started his career at Porsche. And, worked throughout the company for a number of years. By the time he got to his 40s, he had become CEO in like early, like 92, 93, if I remember correctly. And he was a financial guy in the sense that he had already become a millionaire in his 30s through investing in real estate. So he was very in tune to, okay, this company has to make money. Porsche was a takeover threat for other manufacturers. Toyota was interested in taking over Porsche. But instead, what Woody King did is he went with Toyota's, Kaizen, Shingujutsu mentality of car building. So that meant, a better production line. It meant parts coming in on demand, whereas previous generations like 964, they had parts like a year of manufacturing sitting there.
Sure.
A guy would just walk away from the car, look up at all the the part bins, take what he needed, go back and build it. So they really streamlined production, and it saved enough cost in the car that they not only could offer the new 993, 911 at $5,000 less than an equal 964 during a crazy recession, but it cost less to build, and it finally, by like 94, 95, started to make money. So I just think a lot of people say, the 996, 986 saved Porsche, but the 993 needed to be a winner.
Yeah.
It absolutely needed to be a winner, or else we, wouldn't have Porsche today. It'd be Toyotized or whatever. And I think those significant changes, dictated a lot of what we got with these cars. Beautiful, beautiful cars, but just something that was well built. There are cost cutting measures in there. They built these cars, or the R&D was to the tune of like $300 million, which sounds like a lot, but for R&D of a brand new car, 80% of the car is new. It's not a lot of money,
Right.
And that 20% that wasn't new had a lot to do with those cost-cutting measures.
Yeah.
Like you look at the dash of a 993, it's very, very similar to a 964 in certain parts because, we can save costs there. That part looks good, it fits in, with the interior still.
And also, too, people got used to the dash. I kind of got, I liked the dash in the 996 and the 986, but I liked in the 997 when they went back to that, that design language, because you could get in and instantly recognize it's a 911.
Yep.
For the Boxster, it was a great dash. For any other model, it was a great dash. So just to tie off on some of these models too, this is an RS we sold on the site. So just to be clear, the RSs, the 3.8s, US did not get them, and they're narrow bodies. This car is all about lightness. If you are used to driving a 993 and you get in this car, you feel like the engine fell out.
What is this?
It's very light, in a good way. Good way. This car is sublime. When you look at the fact that they only made 50 or 45 964 RSs with the 3.8, and they're worth almost $2 million.
Yeah. Porsche Salt Lake City
you get a
has
3.8
one.
in this car. I'm sorry.
Porsche Salt Lake City has one.
I
shout out to Gavin and team. There's a cool car.
I saw it.
Yep.
This was a club sport. Unfortunately, we didn't sell this. These are like $1.5 million, $2 million, but these are turbocharged. Again, never came to the U.S. This is a very extreme car. This is basically a race car, for the street.
It was an homologation model. So,
yeah.
They had to homologate, the different components for the next generation race cars. They had to do that through their street cars.
Yep, exactly.
And because they only had to make a handful of them, it was, we don't need to make all these components fit the U.S. market.
Yeah.
So we only have to make 50.
Yeah.
So meet homologation requirements. We only have to make 200.
Exactly.
We'll sell all of them here in Germany or Europe or whatnot.
Speaking of homologation, people are upgrading these cars too. We talked about this car, I believe, on one of the former podcasts.
We did.
So I actually got the pleasure
of
of meeting this gentleman, and he bought like 2 other vehicles on Pico Market after buying this. This car, we agreed, was sold for just the right price. They were trying to get a lot more money for this car in the past. It's all stock mechanically, but it's an RS Tribute.
Extremely well done.
Yeah, well done
Tribute.
in the right color, Riviera blue. If this was a real RS in this color, it probably gets a $200,000 premium for the color. It's insane. And you'll be excited to hear, and everybody who cares about this stuff will be excited to hear. I spoke to him recently. He is putting a 3.8 in this car. So now this car will not just be the looks. It's going to be
the real deal.
Yeah, and you know what? That's value added, because if he goes to sell it in the future, it's not going to sell for $130,000 with a 3.8. If it's done the right way, it's going to push the 2 mark. You know what I mean? Because you get the money back on that.
Yep.
There was one we sold a long time ago, and I wish we had more cars like this. This car here, this sold for $300,000. This is a 4S, and
With a 4-liter.
yeah, he did a 4.0, and he put the RS door panels, the RS wheels, but it's a wide body. He put the twin grill. You could see he did the Ressant air intake. Okay, this was, I believe, done by Roth Sport, the motor, and this is what people want. This is what people want. This would be the equivalent of like an air-cooled touring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you got a 4-liter in it.
You know, hot
you're pushing, mid 400s.
Wingless car.
Yeah.
Subtle look, but lots to go.
Yeah. No wing. And this is an under the radar spec. This is not someone who's trying to be seen in a crowd. So, the hot rod, culture is alive. I mean, we have Gunther Works, right? We talked about that before.
Yes.
I'll put one up on the screen. That's the latest Speeds that they built. These cars are incredible. It's very different than a Singer.
Yeah.
They're going for a whole different vibe. But, this is a Roth Sport motor, right? Roughly 500 horsepower, tons of carbon fiber. They're using 993s as donors, whereas like Singer is using the 964s, right? There's the company Cage in Germany. They're building these out of 993s.
I like that.
Yeah.
I didn't know about these until you just showed me.
Yeah, these are arguably like on the level of a Singer, like build quality wise, from what I've heard. I've only seen one in person in Monterey. It was at the hotel.
Last year?
No, at Rennsport.
At Rennsport.
Yeah, and
I missed it. Yeah, I didn't see
I walked around it. I mean, paint was gorgeous, interior was. I mean, the car was on the money. I mean, you could look at this thing. It's stunning. And they're using 993s. So let's hope we don't have that problem where the 964 market dried up because every one of them became a donor car for Singer. But
I disagree with that.
I do too. I see them everywhere.
450, or is going to build 450 classic Singers.
Yeah.
Do you know how many 964s they made?
Oh, I know.
That's
and
less
you know
than
how many of them are
1%
in
of production.
Yeah, most of these cars they're taking. I mean, I've heard of a few, cars.
Some people take some good cars and build it.
But mainly it's like, like we sold one very early on when we launched the company. It was local. We helped the guy sell it. I remember it was Amazon green. The paint was melted off. The guy's airbag deployed one morning when he got in the car, and he stuffed it back in the dashboard and duct taped it. So, I mean, you take a car like that and make a Singer out of it, you did the car a favor. You know what I mean? It was never structurally damaged. You know what I mean? But the car, every inch of the car was leaking. It needed everything. So
duct tape
that's
airbag.
Awesome. It was pretty
That's
funny.
amazing.
It was pretty funny. Yeah. The gauges were cooked because those 964s, right? The gauges like start to melt.
Yep.
It was in a lot of sun. You know what I mean? So it was tan. That car was tan. Here's a 993. So this is a recreation kind of, right? They took 993 and made a Speedster out of it. There are a few factory Speedsters made, but this was a well done. We sold this on the site. This car was in some magazines and stuff like that, but they did a great job with this.
Are those Turbo S intakes?
Yep. And they put the twin grill on the back. They did all the right stuff.
Yeah.
Right wheels.
Speed lines.
Somebody paid in the twos for this car. That's a lot of.
Were the humps custom or what?
I believe
it
so.
had to have been.
Unless they took it off of an 89 or a 94 and retrofitted it, because I would imagine it wouldn't be too hard to do that.
That's a good looking car.
Yeah.
The original Speedster. So Seinfeld has one. Porsche family member has the other one. Did they have the Turbo S intakes or
I
no?
don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either. We have to fact check that.
Right?
Should have done that before we did this. Shame on us. We're bad.
I didn't see it had it when I was looking before.
You know what it is? When you Google it, it's hard to know which one you're looking at is real. You Google. It's funny because after this auction, if you Google 993 Speedster, this car comes up.
This is what comes up.
This car comes up in a lot of stuff. So it's because it's been out there and it's been shared and searched. And this car excited me, man. I thought this car was awesome.
Yeah.
Especially
that's well done.
If you have a collection of Speedsters, which a lot of people, we talk to these folks, right? You find they have every turbo. So if you've got
every Speedster,
the 356, the 89, the 964, and then the 2011 and the new one, you gotta have this thing,
right? But you gotta make it because there's only two.
You gotta make it.
So
but I think you get your money back if you do it the right way.
If it's well built, you've got somebody who knows what they're doing, who has a name as well. A name goes a long way, especially like when it comes to people who build the engines. Like if somebody that 993 with the Roth Sport engine, that brought more money because that engine was built by Roth Sport. It was built by David Whitlock's shop of, Porsche engines.
Yeah. Or have somebody with a name go through. Like this car wasn't, I don't believe it was built by him, but Marlon out of Workshop 5001, he
So there you go.
repped the car for the guy. And, you know, he was honest about the car. That
Yeah.
needs some work. You know what I mean? But I think that at the price they paid, you know, if you put 20, 30 into it, you know, if you're going to build one of these, put a 3.8 or a 4-liter in it. You know what I mean? Because that's got to be awesome with the no roof here and that air-cooled motor screaming like that. And I'm not a big convertible guy, but in this, I would, you know.
The Speedster, yeah.
Yeah.
I dropped the top.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the bottom line? The bottom line is the 993s are alive and well, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially if you have a Targa like that.
Yeah.
A low mileage Targa, sell it now. I don't know how they can sustain $150,000 plus, but whatever.
I guess it just goes to show people collect the quirky stuff.
I mean,
you know?
Targas were like the bottom of the barrel, you know, 10, heck, even 5 years ago, 6 years ago. You know, they were, you know, not going to get a coupe. Well, a Targa looks pretty cheap. Let me get a Targa. And we still see that in the 996 Targa, the 997 Targa market.
Yep.
They're not, you know, crazy or higher. It just makes you think, oh, our 996 Targa is going to go the way of 993 Targas.
And a lot of them
fill
are,
that
a
gap.
lot of them are Tiptronic for obvious
Yeah, a
reasons
lot.
because it's a nice. We have one live on the site right now. It's white. The motor was just rebuilt. It's got a nice set of wheels, and it's higher in the mileage. It's going to be a good value for somebody. That's an awesome car to just have. You know what I mean? And if you wanted to manual swap it, you could, but you could also just drive it the way it is. And, yeah,
cruise
it's a cruiser.
around. Yep.
It's a cruiser. It's a fun
With
car to
that
have.
giant glass roof behind you.
Yeah, you know what I noticed once when I was driving one? It was in the winter, and you get so much light when you open that shade, and it actually it heats you up. It's such a sublime
It's like
feeling. 'cause
greenhouse.
You feel like you're outside, but you don't feel any wind.
You're in a greenhouse, more or
Yeah.
less, with
Yeah, it's
all
like a
the
rolling
glass.
greenhouse.
Yep.
Well said, yeah. And they kind of pioneered. Now you have all these cars with the panoramic roofs. It's like commonplace, but this is, you know, this is kind of where
This
it
was
started.
wild back then.
Yeah, this was the same year Mercedes had that hard top for the SL.
Yes.
So, you
with
know,
the giant glass
yeah.
roof.
So technically, they coined the panoramic, you know, the name, the panoramic roof. But they both came out in '96. This car came out in '96, and the SL started with that option in '96.
Yeah.
Well, I know '97. I know I had a '97 that had it. I'm pretty sure '96 is when it came out. So they're neck and neck there.
Nice.
So pretty cool stuff.
Oh, yeah.
So all right.
Keep
so
993s alive.
exactly. That's it. Thank you everyone for watching. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, wherever else.
StuttgartMarketLetter.com.
Yep.
Daily
Stuttgart
Porsche
Letter.
market updates, free inbox.
Yep. Check his Amelia Island coverage out. And we will do this again very soon. We're sorry for the gap in between, but the traveling is a lot. And
Yes.
we'll put one on the books, and we'll check back in with this wacky market shortly. Thanks, everyone, for watching. See you next time.
All right. Thank you, sir.